Basic school leavers are top of the lists of persons jailed in various prison facilities for the year 2018. Now, people who have had some form of tertiary education are on the other hand, the lowest on that list. These are contained in the 2018 annual report of the Ghana Prison Service, and these statistics are fascinating. So let's have a quick look. Apparently, the majority of prisoners are Christians, followed by Muslims, and then traditionalists and other religions follow. Non-religious people are actually the fewest. Only 4.6% of prisoners are non-religious. Everybody else believes in something or the other. 53% of them are Christians, 20% Muslims. So this is, this is a fascinating statistic. Also, the education level shows that the more educated you are, the fewer of you will be in prison, or the less likely you are to end up in prison. Only 2.4% or almost 2.5% of tertiary educated people make up the population of those in prison. Basic school leavers are the biggest population of prisoners, 65.18%. Followed by non-formal education, and then secondary or post-basic, also 15.79%. Some fascinating figures there. But what do they mean? One more, this is the nationalities, foreigners in our prisoners. And Nigeria tops it with 156 nationals of Nigeria in our prisons, followed by Togo, where 112 Togolese will be found in Ghanaian prisoners, 59 Burkinabes, and 49 from Niger, 19 Malians, and 17 Beninois will be found in our prisons. Now, Mr. Bona, let's talk about the first statistic, and this is about religion. All right, and yeah, more than half of prisoners are Christians, and actually the non-religious people make up only 4.6%. What is the immediate message there for analysts like you?
Well, for me, if you look at in terms of the population breakdown, definitely you would have majority of Ghanaians are Christians, followed by the Muslims, and then in that order. I am not surprised, but then it begs the question, what is taught in our churches and what is taught in our mosques? On Fridays and on Saturdays and Sundays, those who go to church maybe on Mondays. It begs the question because now when you tune into the TV either on Sunday or when there is a repeat telecast, what you see is not teaching people about morality and, being your neighbor's friend or being your neighbor's keeper. You see teachings about prosperity, how to make quick money. You see teachings about living good and all that. And so once these things are taught these days, so these things, they say them openly in churches, and you see church leaders in Ghana these days don't even hide their wealth. You see them buying all the Rolls Royces and the Bugattis and all that. And so the chances are that people leave these churches and they go out there trying to enrich themselves. And so for me, I believe that the Christian leaders, Muslim leaders, and alike would have to conduct some more research to unearth what they are teaching their congregants. What are they teaching them? So that you have as many as 53 or 50, about 53%, more than 53% of all prisoners in our prisons are, what do you call them, Christians? I mean, it begs the question, what are the Christian leaders teaching them? 20% also Muslims. What are the imams teaching these people who are in these facilities? And most of them, I'm sure if anyone went in there to do more research, you would realize that most of these people are repeat offenders. They come out after maybe said they stole some plantain and they were sentenced for 6 months. They came out and no one wants to take them in, and they now go with arms to steal, and probably they are given a life sentence. And so as far as I'm concerned, how is even the church or the mosques reaching out to these people who have been convicted? How is there is there a way, I mean, is there a strategy to make sure that these people are properly rehabilitated? Maybe no. I think the Church of, is it Pentecost? They are building a facility for the prisons, I mean, to decongest the prisons. But what are the other churches doing to make sure the proper rehabilitation takes place and to make sure that people don't commit crime, their followers don't commit crime? So, Kojo, it's a whole thing we have to look at.
Let me ask you this. The smallest population in prison are those who have no religious belief whatsoever. That's about 4.6%. So does the mathematics prove comprehensively that religion is failing as a measure to combat crime?
Oh, it has failed. Not that it's proving. It has failed. Not that it's proven. It's failed already. Religion has failed as a mechanism to combat crime. If you look at most of our leaders today are church elders. Some of these, the highly corrupt people in our society in Ghana are people who sit in the front row. There are people, when Kojo, between myself and you, they might put us behind the aisle. They'll put you behind. Where because you might not be able to pay good sums of money, you might not be able to buy a car for the church leader who is preaching. And so, as for the church or religion has completely failed in dealing with, criminality and dealing with, crime in our society. So it is not that it is proven, it has proven to have failed. And so you don't really have to do any empirical research to come to that conclusion. I mean, you see it everywhere where people purporting to be elders of churches, purporting to be, religious leaders, not even paying taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, some of these churches run businesses. When they are asked to pay taxes, they say they won't pay. Is that not a crime? Not paying a tax? Between myself and you, where I say, if I don't pay tax if my company, Security Warehouse, doesn't pay taxes, we would be breaking the laws of this country. Most of these churches, they run businesses and they flag them under the church and they don't pay tax. And so for me, the church or religion has failed in dealing with, the aspect of crime.
Now let's have a look at the second statistic that we highlighted. Here it is on your screen. It's about the levels of education. And again, something quite revealing here, that basic school leavers make the majority of prisoners. We're talking 65% of incarcerated Ghanaians or incarcerated people in Ghana are basic school leavers. So basically, the trend is upward. The higher your level of education, the less likely you are to be a prisoner. Now, would this be, once again, perhaps a good argument for free SHS? Is education, further education, a stronger measure of combating crime in Ghana?
Well, yes. I mean, research has also proven that chances are that the higher you go in terms of education, the less likely you are to commit some type of crime. Because the truth is that if you have to do proper research, you'd realize that those who are incarcerated today are the people who don't know anybody, but those who still, by the stroke of the pen, are still walking the streets of Ghana, are still sitting at the ministries, are still, operating religious facilities. And so because probably they have been able to learn how to beat the system. But the truth is that...
So I guess what you're saying here is that rather than the more educated you are, the less likely you are to commit a crime, it's rather the more educated you are, the more likely you are to get away with committing a crime.
Exactly. That's what I want to say. Because you see, you and I know, I mean, you look at the types of crimes that sometimes are reported that go uninvestigated. They go uninvestigated because, first of all, you have a situation where what do you call it? Most of these people who commit these crimes have perfected their way to beat it. So you have a network of, excuse me to say, criminals who run the chain so that the guy who is supposed to investigate you himself somehow is in bed with you. So you never end up in jail. Wow. And so these people you are showing very disturbing videos. You are showing are the people who were not smart enough and were arrested and probably couldn't afford, what do you call it, lawyers, or couldn't afford to hire attorneys to, argue their cases for them. And also, seriously, you see, if you know how the criminal justice system works in this country, some of these young people don't actually even know their rights. You are arrested by a police officer. You are taken to a police station. The law says that, they shouldn't take your statement without, a witness. They are not supposed to take your statement without a witness. They will take your statement. The investigator will tell you that when you are taken to court, you only stole maybe plantain. Just say you are guilty. When you say you are guilty, the judge is going to be lenient with you and will leave you to go. And the moment they mention guilty, the judge would say, you pay 1,800 or 6 months imprisonment. And when they don't have the money, they end up this way. And so mine is that we need to look at the whole criminal justice delivery system because it has failed in dealing with crime. It has failed in dealing with crime. It has rather created more crimes so that those who are supposed to be in prison, in fact, Kojo, are actually walking the street of this country because they actually would be able to bribe their ways, either at the courts. I mean, there's evidence to prove that some judges have been complicit in this whole thing. There's evidence that some criminals, some prosecutors have been complicit. There is evidence to prove that investigators have also been complicit. And so it is only the weak, if I'll call it that way, largely who would usually end up in facilities like this. Right. And so I think that let's look at this whole thing, because if you look at also, apart from what I mentioned, Kojo, the way when we were growing up, we didn't live in, houses that were walled. If you were seen probably doing things that were not good, a friend's mother would whip you, would give you a smack in the back. Today, we all live in fence walls. We live in gated communities. And so these children go out there, and sometimes the first time they go out there, they commit a crime, and sometimes they end up in jail. Parenting. Too many children, you see them on the streets. When you come to Shiashi, not far away from where I am, go to most of these cities, young people streeting literally on our streets. I believe that the Ministry of Gender and Children, or whatever they call them, has failed woefully in dealing with this canker of young offenders, and the state itself has failed. So I would have wished that instead of us taking the raw data and punching holes, we take it and ask a lot of questions to be able to find out what are we not doing right, because we have the future leaders, in incarceration. So where are we going from here, Kojo?
Okay, that's a deep question. Now let's look at the final statistic, and this is about foreigners in our prison population. Nigerians topping it, 156 of them. 17 Beninois at the bottom of that list. But we've got Togolese, Burkinabés, Nigerians, and of course Malians in there as well. Massive majority are Nigerians, though.
In probably 80% of countries all over the world. It's not just it's not a phenomenon where you say it's just limited to Ghana. If you went to Britain, in the past you would have more Jamaicans or more people from the Caribbean committing crimes in Britain in probably in the early 90s and late 90s. But then it changed, where if you go to Britain today, chances are that you would have more Nigerians actually in more Nigerians as foreign nationals in British, prisons. I'm sure if you went to Burkina Faso, it is so. But you can't take that out of context. You have to realize that the population of Nigeria is huge. And so if the population of Nigeria is huge, chances are that you are going to have a good number of them, being incarcerated in foreign prisons. But that is not to say it is an excuse for them to commit crime, because the population of the U.S. is bigger than, Nigeria. But if you went to, let's say, Britain, or you went to Germany and most of these countries, you would find less and less U.S. nationals committing crime. But the truth is that you and I know that the situation back home for Nigerians is not good. The economy isn't doing well, and Boko Haram is hitting them left and right, and probably bad leadership is pushing a lot more of our brothers and sisters from neighboring Nigeria to go into other countries, and sometimes they come in and they find it very difficult to adjust, and they end up committing crimes and getting themselves sent to prison. And so I am not surprised. I would have been surprised if this proved to be something different, because it is like that in about 80% of all countries in the world, where you will find more and more of our brothers, Nigerians, in foreign prisons. But I've given some of the reasons why it is so.
Right. Well, Mr. Bonner, I want to thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That was enlightening. Adam Bonner, of course, is a security analyst, and you hear him often here on Joy News.